name is Olivia, and today's video is a review of After You by Jojo Moyes. This review will have some spoilers for Me Before You, but there won't be any spoilers for After You. After You is the sequel, or the companion novel, to Me Before You, which was also made into a movie, and Me Before You was a 5-star read for me. Even though I'm generally not a fan of contemporary or romance, I loved the emotional elements and the characters in this novel. After falling in love with the cast of characters for Me Before You, I was so excited to hear that Jojo Moyes was coming out with a follow-up novel. Unfortunately, this one didn't live up to my expectations. When I first picked up this book, it was out of curiosity as to how the characters would rebuild their lives following Will's death. After You picks up about a year or two after Me Before You left off. Once again, we're following Louisa Clark, but we see a much darker, more depressed side of her than we did in Me Before You. One of my favorite aspects of Me Before You had been her bubbly, positive outlook on life, and that was completely missing in this book. She came across as a lifeless, flat character, instead of the character I'd come to love in the first installment. To make matters worse, it came across that she had regressed to the character that she was at the start of Me Before You. All of the character building throughout that novel was tossed out the window, and she was back to where she started in this book. Despite this tremendous step backwards, she wasn't doing anything to improve her situation. She allowed her entire life to be consumed by mourning for Will, instead of trying to move on and make new connections. As a result, I didn't have much sympathy for her, and I also didn't have the same connection that I had to her in Me Before You. I was very skeptical when a new love interest was introduced. While he was relatively positive and stable in Lou's otherwise tumultuous life, I knew that he would never live up to Will in my mind. I missed Will and Lou's relationship, their playful banter, their exchanges, and unfortunately none of that came across in her new relationship. His inclusion in the book seemed like a bit of a side thought. It seemed like Jojo Moyes was trying to send a message. The only possible way to grow or recover from something traumatic is to fall in love, which can be a problematic theme, especially for younger readers, if it's not executed well. The final character that I wanted to talk about was Lily. I could not stand Lily for the life of me, nor did I understand why she was included in this book in the first place. Her backstory seemed like it was there purely for shock value, and was one of the only noteworthy plot points in the entire book. The subplot surrounding her really came out of the blue, and it seemed like Jojo Moyes was running out of ideas. I don't have much patience for children's or adolescents in novels to begin with, and Lily was no exception. At 16, she had classic absentee parents who popped in and out of the story when it was convenient, but weren't seen or heard from outside of that. She was also incredibly ungrateful and repeatedly took advantage of Lou throughout the book. She certainly didn't act like someone who wanted something from Lou. On the flip side of things, Lou was a bit of a doormat in these situations. She allowed Lily to walk all over her without intervening or standing up for herself. This seemed extremely out of character, especially with the Lou that we saw at the end of Me Before You. Feminism was another prominent subplot in this book, and I felt like I was being beat over the head with it. I didn't see the purpose in many of these subplots, and they came across as filler. From a plot standpoint, not a whole lot happened in this book. There were a few pivotal moments, and the remainder was filler. While I think this was intended as more of a character-driven novel, I didn't see much character development either. Ultimately, I would have preferred Me Before You to stay a standalone. Nothing crucial was revealed in After You, and many of the characters deviated from their initial personalities and traits that were portrayed in Me Before You. To compound matters, all of the characters were relatively static. While I understand that Lou was trying to piece herself back together after the tragedy that she had just endured, she wasn't doing a whole lot to help herself, which was extremely aggravating as a reader. I didn't see a purpose in extending the series beyond Me Before You. It's fairly obvious when authors try to capitalize on one success and turn it into something much larger. While I wish that I had read Me Before You and just left it at that, I'm glad I gave this a try. If I hadn't, I would have had the question in the back of my mind, what happened to these characters? How does the plot unravel from there? While not many of those questions were answered, I at least got a sense of closure. While I loved Me Before You, I gave After You 2 out of 5 stars. It fell pretty flat by comparison. The conclusion of Me Before You left readers with a sense of hope, but that sense of hope was nowhere to be found in After You. Without a doubt, Jojo Moyes is a tremendously gifted writer, and her writing style was one of the only redeeming qualities in this book. At this point, I can't say for sure whether I'm going to continue on to the third book in the series. If you've read any of this series, let me know what you thought of it down below, and I'll see you in my next video.